Good afternoon to you. I'm Danilo Evangelista, and welcome to our tropical weather outlook for September 19th, 2025. Today's discussion, we're going to go over Gabrielle, which is getting better organized. We're starting to see convection fire over its center, and Gabrielle is starting to get less sheared. And this will go on to potentially strengthen into a hurricane, as I'll show you with the forecast and all of the models. But we're also going to go over what else we might have to track in the next week to 10 days beyond Gabrielle. Yes, there are now signals that are starting to pop up that are actually pretty decent, and I'll show you why I think that we need to keep an eye out on them instead of just watching the models for fun for these next 7 to 10 days. I'll go over all of that and more. Let's get started with today's video, going over the National Hurricane Center website, because that is where the heart of all of our information generally comes from. Starting off with Gabrielle, still 50 miles per hour with a minimum central pressure of 1,004 millibars, but it does look like this is finally starting to get more organized, and it's kind of held steady for intensity for a while now. Yesterday was sheared and so much dry air to the point that there was no convection in the storm. But again, I think that is beginning to change today, as I'll show you with the satellite loop in just a little bit. Then we also have another wave here in the eastern Atlantic. And this is still a little bit iffy about whether or not this will develop, but I'll show you. Beyond Gabrielle, looks like we might finally have some signals beginning to pop up here in the Atlantic. In the Eastern Pacific, there's Invest 96E. It's looking much less likely that this will develop now, as it seems like it struggled to get going in time, and this has very limited time left for this to actually be able to consolidate before this moves into cooler water temperatures and more hostile conditions. But looks like there will be another chance for something to try to develop here. As you can see, a new area of interest. This was designated only like a few days ago, now up to a 70% chance of development in the next week, with a 30% chance of development in the next 48 hours. So looks like activity maintaining for the meanwhile in the Pacific. But here's a look at Gabrielle. That's where we're going to start off today. In fact, it's pretty much what most of the video is going to be about today, is Gabrielle, since that is the main thing that we're tracking in the Atlantic right now. And you can see, first of all, I'm a little bit annoyed that this full frame is not loading, but you can see here on the frames that are loading that there's actually convection now beginning to burst over the center here, over Gabrielle. You can see early in the frame, the center was kind of a naked swirl with convection being sheared off to the side. But looks like in recent frames we're starting to have a lot more of these pretty deep convective bursts, and now the center of Gabrielle is now completely clouded over by convection. So definitely a sign that wind shear over the storm is beginning to lessen. In fact, I'll even show you here on the University of Wisconsin shear map. You could see that Gabrielle is now pretty decently in the green values here of wind shear in the Atlantic, meaning that wind shear is favorable and low enough for development. So the wind shear is starting to go down with this, and conditions are also becoming more favorable too. In fact, best way to show you this is with the ship's output for Gabrielle over the next several days here, and this is the map here that I want to show you, that kind of gives the diagnostics of the atmosphere, and you can see here this gray line, that's the wind shear, and over the next several hours, over the next several days, wind shear is going to be at its lowest, anywhere between 10 knots and even potentially lower. And because of that, the winds is probably going to strengthen quite a bit. Again, this is going to become a hurricane. And also here, something very important as well, is the green bar here, or line, and that's the mid-level relative humidity. And this is something that Gabrielle for the last several days has been struggling with. The fact that the environment in the MDR right now is still pretty dry, that it wasn't able to produce much in the way of convection at all for some time, or at least not any organized convection. Looks like that might be less of an issue now, especially over the next day or so here, as relative humidity will go up. So again, we're probably going to see organization continue with Gabrielle. And as you can see here, National Hurricane Center definitely expects that, because they have this strengthening into a hurricane by Sunday morning. And then eventually it strengthens. I think National Hurricane Center has a Category 2 peak, and then starts to turn north of Bermuda, and then turns to the northeast. Although again, Bermuda, I think, should still watch and keep a close eye on Gabrielle. Now, let's take a look at the models, see what they have for today. And just to show you here, over the next several days, pretty much unanimous consensus from all of the models. So I'm going to show you the GFS and then the HAF, so I can show you more models. But you can see here on the GFS, really does begin to get its act together in the next day or so here in the Atlantic. And you can see here, especially this is by early Sunday, you could definitely see that we're starting to see intensification occur with Gabrielle, and then it probably peaks just to the east of Bermuda before, as we head into next week, it begins to get picked up by this trough here in the northern Atlantic, and then eventually it merges with that, and then Gabrielle is out of our hair and not much of a discussion anymore, at least in terms of tropical development over the next week. And then you could also see here something else developing near the islands here in the MDR, and this is roughly at exactly pretty much a week out from now. And I'm going to go over here in just a little bit before, after I show you the HAFS model. Gabrielle might not actually be the only thing now that we're going to track here over the next week. Again, I'll go over that in just a little bit. Here's the HAFS model, one of the hurricane models, and this is the newer hurricane model that is going to replace the HWRF, I believe, after the end of this year. And they also have strengthening. In fact, the HAFS strengthens, makes this a major hurricane. We even get to the lower 940s in terms of pressure here, peaks at 941 millibars, and this is on Monday. So when do they start? When does intensification start occurring? By tomorrow, the HAFS already has this pretty much knocking on hurricane intensity. In fact, by Sunday, when the National Hurricane Center says that this will strengthen to a hurricane, this already becomes a major hurricane on the HAFS model. And definitely very interesting, because this is a hurricane model after all. So you would think that you would take the hurricane model more seriously, since it is the model specific for hurricane, for tracking and predicting the intensity and development of hurricanes, and then eventually this goes on to become a major hurricane and peaks at a pretty high intensity here. We reach 128 knots, so that's almost 130 knots. So that's almost a high-end Category 4 hurricane that Gabrielle reaches in terms of intensity. And that happens as we head into next week, and then eventually, becomes extratropical and gets influenced by energy in the northern Atlantic. So we're going to have Gabrielle potentially become our next hurricane and our next major hurricane here over the next week, at least as we head into the next few days into early next week. But beyond that, as I said before, looks like there is more that happens after Gabrielle. And one way best to look at that is with the Google AI model. This is it, and I'm going to start using the Google AI model a lot more. I usually use the European ensembles, but here's the Google AI model for the next week to even 2 weeks. And notice something here. This is the envelope in the first part of the frame. This is all of the ensemble members with Gabrielle, and obviously they all have this intensifying and becoming a pretty strong hurricane here over the next several days as this curves on northward and then northeastward. out in the open Atlantic. But notice beyond that, look at how much ensemble members start popping up here in the Western Atlantic, and especially, and I did mention this very briefly a few days ago, but look here in the Gulf of Mexico and in the Western Caribbean. Lots of ensemble members start appearing on the Google AI model ensemble, and I find it interesting because uh, you know, we've been down this road before, especially in the last several years as we got towards late September. The Caribbean and especially the Eastern Gulf seems to be a hotspot for development, and especially particularly strong development. And that's what a lot of the Google AI models ensembles here show. Development occurring here out of the Northern Caribbean, and then a lot of it becomes very strong, especially as it heads into the Gulf. But you also see a lot of other ensembles too. Just look at how much strong ensembles that occur in general over the next beyond the next week, especially once Gabrielle gets out of our hair and eventually just goes off into the North Atlantic. Just look at how many of these other ensembles here of potential other development is also strong, not just in the Caribbean. So it looks like Gabrielle might finally be the beginning, as I've been saying and as I've been warning about over the last several days, that Gabrielle might finally be the beginning of the peak of the hurricane season kicking into full gear. And before I close out, just want to show you the velocity potential anomalies. And this is a very, good explanation as to probably why we're seeing all these things begin to pop up in the models. Notice here, beginning right now, but especially as we head towards the next week here in the Atlantic, we have a wave of the MJO coming through, as you can see here with a lot of these green velocity potential anomalies moving eastward into the Atlantic. That means the atmosphere is going to become much more favorable over the next week for development in the Atlantic, and obviously we're starting to see that already occur with Gabrielle. But pointing this out because we obviously, it helped aid Gabrielle, but it might help aid in more development beyond Gabrielle, and some of that might be pretty interesting because obviously it is in places where we would typically watch for potential impacts, especially to us here in the United States, where I assume most of my viewers are. But in general, I'd say get ready because Gabrielle looks like it might just the beginning of things beginning to really ramp up here in the Atlantic. But for now, gonna still focus mainly on Gabrielle here over the next several days, as it'll likely strengthen and maybe become our next hurricane, or I think at this point more than likely now, and then maybe even our or another major hurricane, and then beyond that, we'll have to watch and see what else happens here in the Atlantic. But things certainly are starting to get interesting for sure. But that's going to do it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed what you saw today. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy your weekend as well. And as of course, I'll be back with more tomorrow. See you then.